All right, we're back for episode 37 of the Idiot Circle. I'm Mike.
I'm Fred.
I'm Rob.
Fred, why don't you introduce our special guest today?
And our special guest and his second appearance on the Idiot Circle, Mr. Brady Beedon from Stuck on Sports.
Thank you for having me. It doesn't seem like that long ago. We were talking about previewing the season, and now we basically just have the playoffs in front of us.
Yeah.
That's,
How about
I know
that?
that is absolutely crazy. So my first question, Brady, to you is give us an overview of what you thought how the season's been in the area. Any surprises, disappointments that you've seen, and then kind of give us an idea of who you think has a chance to make a run to Ford Field.
Well, we'll start with surprises. I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's welcome to see that Armada was able to continue the success from last year, because every school will have a good year once in a while, the ones that are down. It's a mark of a good coach and a good culture if you can keep it going. So obviously after the win at Marine City, you're thinking, all right, they're doing well. They lose to Cros-Lex and you're thinking maybe they just got up for the one big game, but they've been rolling since then. A chance at their first BWAC title in 18 years. So that's good to see for them. Right next door to you guys at Cardinal Mooney. That's been a great story there. Joe Cannell has those guys going. I know, Fred, you got to see Brendan Hazenlater play in person.
Yeah,
and he is as phenomenal. Like, you can't overhype the kid. He is phenomenal.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he hasn't gotten that many looks.
Yeah, and that's, part of the reason is, you're at Cardinal Mooney, you're D8 school, but wherever he goes, like, I think any GLIAC school would be glad to have him. He should be playing at that level, but if an NAIA school gets him, they will get a huge steal and they will be jumping for joy when they have it. Another nice surprise is we weren't sure what Port Huron Northern was going to be, them and Port Huron High. They were coming off good years, but they had lost some talent. Northern, maybe more so, and they've both just been rolling. I know PH lost that week 1 game, but that's to Grand Rapids Catholic Central.
They got destroyed.
Yeah, but there's
a difference
between
losing and getting destroyed.
But since then they have bounced back, and their only loss has been a 14-7 basically coin flip to Northern. So there have been a lot of nice stories so far in the area, and those are probably the highlights. The other ones that I do want to talk about, probably the biggest surprise, is what Brown City's done. They make the jump to 8-man, and right away there's no period of acclamation. Just right off the get, they are beating good teams in the state. They are going on long road trips. They beat 2 teams that made a semifinal a year ago. They're 6-1. They look like, well, they're 7-1 because their game against Vandercook Lake was forfeited. So they're likely going 8-1 and probably going to host a playoff game, depends on the draw, but they're a threat to make a deep run in the postseason. And Brown City football isn't someone we've talked about a lot before this year, because just numbers wise, they're the poster child for what going to 8-man can do. It's a fun game to watch, and it's not any lesser football because there's 3 less guys on the field. It allows these small communities to keep that game going, keep football in their school,
keep the tradition going.
Yeah, and Brown City goes from being a team that was at best middle tier in the GTC East to being a state title contender. And the GTC East has Ubly, who is the single most dominant high school football team I've seen from our area. They are beating good teams by a lot. Harbor Beach is always tough, and then Sandusky and now Cass City are tough in there. And the last one I want to talk about is a kid from Peck that a lot of people don't know about, Caleb Letner. In 7 games. It's been a long week. 7 games, over 2,000 yards rushing and 26 touchdowns. He is under 500 yards away from setting the 8-man state record for rushing yards in a season, which I believe is 2491 set last year. So kid from Peck, God forbid any injuries, or if he keeps up this pace, he will be atop a state record.
So Brady, you're saying like 2 thumb running backs one at Cardinal Mooney and his kid at Peck, they probably have 4,000 or more yards between them.
I think Hazenlater's at like 1,600, but yeah, I mean, these two kids are just unbelievable talents, and they are doing a lot for their small schools. And between them, their two teams are 12-2. So they found some team success too.
That's awesome.
Cardinal Mooney qualified to play in the Prep Bowl, Rob. So looking at that too is when Brady was on the show the first time, he mentioned that if Marine City had the running back from Cardinal Mooney, that Marine City wouldn't have to throw the football. And I wasn't sure about that until I went and saw him play. And I'm like, yeah, Brady's right. Shouldn't question Brady anyway, because the guy knows a lot of shit. So, you know, I guess the biggest thing I have for you is what is your overall evaluation of Marine City? What is your overall outlook of, like, let's say Cros-Lex?
So let's start with Marine City. They're still, I mean, they're coming off a state title appearance. They lost a lot of good kids, and their one loss is a double overtime thriller, which could have gone either way. I mean, you play that game 10 times, it goes 5 different ways. Since then, they've done exactly what you expect them to. They beat a good South Lake team by 17 points. They beat a better Marysville team that I think going into the game, everyone was thinking this might be close, and it was never really close. They've done exactly what I've expected to. Now, the big test for them will be in week 9, and whether I think they could have a chance to repeat their appearance at Ford Field, or if they're going to have to, you know, it's going to be a much tougher road when they play Durand, who right now is 7-0, and from all accounts is one of the favorites in D6. They have to go to there. That's going to be a tough game. The other problem with Marine City is D5 might be the most condensed division of good teams.
Yeah.
Not only do you have Frankenmuth, not only do you have Portland, you're going to have Notre Dame Prep, you're going to have Detroit Country Day, you could have Armada, and those are all teams that you could see before the regional final. I mean, that doesn't even include a team like South Lake, who is a good team, who will probably end up 8-1, but might not make it far in the playoffs because of the draw. D5 is just a bitch to get through. And depending on the draw, if they get a draw like last year, hey, Marine City might have an easier road than most, or they could get drawn in a district of death where they have Armada and Country Day and South Lake. And it's like, okay, you have 4 teams that could win a district title. Only one of them is playing past week 2.
And of course, the in the finals, it would probably be Grand Rapids Catholic Central.
You'd assume so, unless Frankenmuth gets pulled west, and they're probably best suited to knock off Grand Rapids Catholic Central. That's right. Once you get to that finish line, you have the biggest boss to face since then.
Gotcha.
Take out the 2 running backs that we talked about out of the Thumb area kids. What are the next 2 best football players in all of the Thumb?
Well, I mean, you can't start that discussion without talking about Luke Fletcher. I mean, he's the D1 kid, and he's been hurt recently, but when he's out there, he's a difference maker.
Who's he play
for Port Huron Northern? Sorry.
Yeah, for Port Huron Northern. Okay.
Yeah, Port Huron Northern defensive end Luke Fletcher. He's just something else. Port Huron, they don't have a lot of quantity with their players, but what they have is really good. I mean, Amari Holler is a kid that a quarterback you can always trust. Gavin Troy has had a really nice year. In years past, he struggled staying healthy. He's been healthy this year. He's a running back linebacker, and he plays the game hard. He's a kid that's fun to watch. Trying to think just through us. I mean, obviously at Marine City, when Zach Tetler's playing, he's electric. He's a home run threat from anywhere on the field. He plays defense. He's been really solid. You go up to Cros-Lex. Belly Groppy, who's been hurt since about week 3 or 4, is a dude. He makes a big difference, and that's why you've seen a little bit of a drop off since he's been off.
That's the guy you told us about last time on the show.
Yeah,
When we asked the question, who was some of the best, the talent to watch in the thumb. You
Mhm.
mentioned him. I remember that. Belly
Yeah,
button.
and he is sensational, and he is a big difference maker.
So
Another
is he a running back or
He
what
is a
he?
running back for them. Another lineman they have plays offensive and defensive line. He's a junior, Joey Ramsey, up at Cros-Lex. He's probably, I mean, he might end up being a MAC kid. I mean, if I had to guess right now, he's going to be a GLIAC football player. Big kid, about 6'3". I believe he's over 200 pounds, and he is a force on both offensive and defensive lines. He's a kind of player that any coach would love to have. And then, I mean, I know I'm missing a bunch of really solid kids around the area, but those are the names that jump out to me right away.
Hey, let me ask you this, because the transfer portal has started to change football and some of these kids from the thumb area that could go to a smaller college, what is a potential for someone like a kid from Cardinal Mooney, the running back, to go
Mhm.
into a small school and maybe jump up a level to a MAC school or even the D1?
You know, it's really too early to tell because it's the very infant stages of this transfer portal. And yeah, you see it. Hey, a kid that might be really good at Toledo ends up at Ohio State a year later, or a kid that's not playing at Michigan State ends up at Eastern. You know where it's there. Where I'm not sure how it's going to be affected is, hey, our D3 team's going to be pillaged? Is Adrian going to have a kid that is unbelievable that ends up at Wayne State the next year, and then a kid from Wayne State who goes off ends up at Central Michigan? Like it's hard to tell. Is that a possibility? Of course, but I have to imagine in the next few years there's going to be some guardrails put in place to kind of curtail
Slow it down.
that. Yeah, so it's not just a kid going, all right, I'm going to go to, let's say, Concordia for a year, gonna go for 1,000 yards, and then I'm gonna go to my pick of GLIAC schools.
Right.
Why does a guy like the kid at Cardinal Moody not have more looks? Is it because he's at a small school, doesn't have a pipeline built to a major college, or
Part of that,
or is it his size?
No, he is every bit as built as a like when I watch him play, I tell people at the next level, he is as built and as ready for D2 football as you can see.
Part of
the problem is,
give us
frankly,
his stats. How, what does he look like? What's his build?
He's I'm just spitballing right here. He's probably around 6 foot. I don't know how much he weighs, probably 180, 190 if I had to guess. Like, he's a built kid. He is strong.
I think he's 210.
210. There you go. So he's
he
even bigger than I gave him credit for.
Yeah.
But he is the size of a D2 football player, whether a running back, you want to move him to linebacker, he could find a way to play. And from all accounts, he's everyone's favorite kid. Everyone says, I'd want him to date my daughter. But part of the reason is, frankly, St. Clair County is just ignored. I've told this story before on our show, but I went to a camp in the summer going into my senior year. And at the same camp, Jarrett Matheson was there, just played and won a state title for Marine City, right? So he's gotten exposure. There's no question that he's played on a big stage. And I won't name what school it was, but it was one that is close enough to St. Clair County that they should know. And I go, and, you know, at the end of camps, if anyone's ever been there, they say, okay, these areas go to that coach, those areas go to this coach, yada, yada, yada. Well, at the end, me and Matheson are sitting there, and we're the only ones left. And we're like, he didn't name anywhere around there. So we go up to the head coach. Again, this is a D2 school that is close enough that they should know. And we go, so where do kids from St. Clair County go? And he just looks at us and goes, where's that at? So it was like,
whoa,
like, dude, I drove not even an hour and a half to get here. Like,
Brady,
like, you should know. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. Part of it is the pipeline that, hey, some kids, and here's a dirty secret about recruiting. If there's 4 kids, or there's a kid at King, right, or Cas Tech, and maybe he's a step behind a kid at Marine City or Marysville or Cros-Lex or anywhere, they're going to take the kid from King, so they know the next time they have a kid that they really want, they have that relationship. And I mean, how many great players have we seen go through here that you're like, that's a big time kid, and then just they don't have a lot of love at the next level.
But we hear at these big programs, high school programs, the Maslin, Ohio's, the Northwestern out of Miami, Modern Day, Concord up in Northern California, that these schools have departments inside their football program that put together tape to get these kids to the
Well,
big
yeah,
time.
those are basically small colleges at that point. I mean,
Right. But I mean, there's got to be some factor in some of even these smaller schools that coaches can get someone like an intern out of the school to do that to kind of
Well,
push
most
these
of
kids.
the kids in this area, the people that are putting out their tapes are their fathers or their parents.
yeah, or
They're
they're
hiring
it's-
somebody trying to get on Huddle, create
Yeah.
a
Stir.
highlight tape,
Yeah.
just to stir up some interest,
And-
and to me, I mean, you get like a school like, let's say, Saginaw Valley, who's not that far away from here, who's actually have had kids from this area go there, and those kids leaving because it's a dumpster fire there. And then you got a school like Wayne State, who should be up here and finding some gems too.
That's a battle I've been fighting. I say Wayne State any D2 kid from here should be at Wayne State, or at least have a scholarship offer from Wayne State, bar none. That this area should be painted green and gold, and it's not. And that's a battle I've been fighting.
God, even on the max stage, though, Eastern should be all around this area.
Yeah, that's where Luke Fletcher's going. So they are, but and I'll be honest, here is a lot of the really good players from the area. There are very few D1 kids.
Yeah.
The D2 kids, the borderline there is where I feel it's a little under recruited, and sometimes kids are just really good high school players, and there's nothing wrong with that. And they're just not fit for the next level. Just like when you watch college football,
Some of them can't make the transition.
Yeah, they're just great college football players. They will have a lot of success. The NFL won't be for them. That sometimes happens.
Now, are you talking about all Ohio State quarterbacks at this point? Or
Hey, they at least get the first paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the real money's
And
in
then
the
they gamble it
second
away.
paycheck.
Yeah, I'll
the
take
real
the first
money's
paycheck.
in the out of your rookie paycheck.
Yeah, I'll still take a rookie contract.
Yeah, no shit, right? Well, my biggest concern is
And leave stuck on sports, Brady? I don't think so.
yeah, right. So, I mean, my biggest concern is you got schools like Ferris and Saginaw Valley and Grand Valley, these D2 schools. I think they're really in Wayne State are really missing out on these kids in these areas, finding that hidden gem. And I think it's really, I mean, I remember when we were in school, Randy Jones went to Grand Valley to play football, and they basically used him as a tackling dummy, and he left. And as we know, Randy Jones was probably one of the best running backs to ever come out of this area in a long time. But there's kids that, Brady, since you started doing Stuck on Sports, and since I've, going to Marine City and watching kids play, there's been a lot of kids that I think kind of got, to be quite frank, were dicked over and really didn't get any kind of love whatsoever from even a D3. I mean, a decent D3 school, or even a low D2 school. And so it's kind of frustrating, especially for you, because I know that you had a great football career at Marysville, and the thing is you had to go out and had to do everything on your own just to find something, and you ended up at Wayne State, thank God, and you got to play. But I mean, people like Kyle Zimmerman, who played at Wayne State, and you get one of the few. You get Wes Kammer that played at Michigan State. You had Anthony Scarcelli that played at Central, but as great as players they were in high school, they didn't really map out or really do much at the collegiate level. But they did earned a degree, and they got to be on the football field, and they're going to be recognized as a player. Okay, we don't have any Rudies around here.
No. Well, and the other thing is sometimes, I mean, this is on a case-by-case basis, but the difference between high school football and college football is tenfold. Like, it is a job, and if you are not in love with football, if it is not your passion and you're burning to do it, then don't play college football. And that's why you'll see some kids that, they've just always been more athletic their whole life, that they haven't really had to push themselves hard, that you go to the next level and everyone's as good as you.
Yep.
And you have to find a way to separate yourself. And that's why you see some kids that you think, oh, they were great in high school, and then they go on to college and they're not on the team 3 months later.
That's a good point. You know, you don't think about that.
Yeah, because I mean, especially, and that's just part of the negative of the small town feel is if you never get outside of St. Clair County, if your family doesn't know any better, if you're the first generation to do it, hey, wow, you're great. You're the fastest kid in the MAC Silver. You're amazing. And then, well, there's a whole other, your entire class is as good as you. There was a joke that we'd have at Wayne State that every year when you do the player introductions, it's all right, your name, your hometown, and how many records you hold at your high school. Like, because everyone does that. Everyone's their Mr. Everything at their high school.
Do you think it has something to do with the level of resources that colleges have? I mean, are they as focused on it as they were before, or are some of these colleges waiting for people to come to them versus them?
No, you go talk to any GAs at D2, D3 schools, they are scouring the internet for any little crumb that they can get a kid on. So it's not that. I think part of it is a little bit of familiarity. So if you're from Saginaw, you're from the West Side, and you get into college coaching, you already have those built-in relationships where for the most part around here, there's not really anyone that there's no in at a lot of places. And that's another thing, like we talked earlier. Hey, I want this kid so I can get the next kid. And that's part of it. So I just think that sometimes be honest, sometimes we might overvalue our kids around here because you have to remember there's how many football players in the state and each school gets 15 to 20 of them. And there are some that get under recruited, don't get me wrong. And I will beat the drum and I will try to get them to the next level. Like Zach Tetler starting to get a little bit of love as he should, but there's no reason that kid shouldn't have his pick of GLIAC schools. But it's just, I don't know. And the biggest example of this isn't in football, it's in basketball. Tyler Jamison up at Port Huron Northern.
What a joke.
He should have that's where the transfer portal is really hurting him because he is unbelievable. And anyone who wants to argue that he's the best basketball player that's been around in my lifetime, I will put my foot in the ground and I will die on that hill because he is sensational. And if a GLIAC school gets him, Wayne State offered him. If he ends up at Wayne State, I will be doing backflips because he will be an all GLIAC player multiple times over.
Right. So where's he going again?
He's not committed. He has offers from, I think, Saginaw Valley, Wayne State, but he's going into his senior year. And
dude, he's a Division I player.
He's a Division
I don't understand. I don't understand what the fuck everybody in this state. I mean, you're telling me that he can't play in the fucking MAC? Are you kidding me? This kid averages nearly 30 points a game. And I mean,
and then he plays elite travel ball.
Jesus. I mean, it's like, what the hell do these kids have to do?
I saw him play a couple years ago, really Fred, when he was an 8th grader. Aiden McElroy was on his team. So I went up to Fort Gratiot to watch him play. And my God, he was like a man playing against kids. It was really uncomfortable to watch because he was so much different looking than everybody on the court, and he could do whatever he wanted.
And that's my thing that bothers me is, you got a kid that good and he's in 8th grade. Why can't he? They should be allowed to move him up to a freshman level or a JV level to challenge the kid. I don't give a shit about, because I mean, when I was in 7th grade, I could have played varsity baseball at Holy Cross for my dad. I could have been the starting catcher. I was catching his starting pitchers. They didn't have a catcher, so I was catching them. My dad petitioned for me to play as a 7th grader, and they wouldn't let me do it because of the rules. I think that, and to me, if a kid's good enough and your parents sign off on it, or a school looks after the kid, takes care, there should be no reason why you can't move up and play. It's stupid. It's like you playing, going into high school playing baseball and in the summer you have to go play in a coach pitch league, and it's no fun because you're just hitting the ball a million miles, and you could bunt and hit a home run, just run around the bases and never get tagged out. It's just it's stupidity. I think it
it doesn't help.
It doesn't help their development.
It doesn't help hit their development. It doesn't help the kids that are on the floor with him that he's dominating either.
No, because they're just going to throw him the ball and he's just going to go off and do his
or
thing.
the guys playing against him, Fred. It's
right.
It's demeaning to them.
Well, yeah.
With Jamison, I mean, he puts up 30 points a game, and if he wanted to be selfish, he could put up more. That's the thing is, if you watch him, he puts up unselfish 40-point games, which is hard to do in high school basketball.
No kidding.
That's just stupid.
It is. It is. And he is, I mean, there are very few athletes I think are must see in the area.
He's definitely
must see. Like, I'm telling people, if you have a free night when Northern's playing, go watch him. It is worth it. You know, it is funny, the sports that are this area actually gets recruited pretty well at are baseball and softball. I mean, you have, it seems like every year, every other year, you have kids going D1, going to the high level schools. Heck, Algonac has two ball players that are going to Michigan. Like, baseball and softball are the ones.
You got track, you got golf, you got cross country. You got you had the girl from Cros-Lex that ran in the friggin' Olympics this past year. Yeah, and she was at Michigan State. You had Tori Wesley and Joe Wesley. Tori was at Michigan doing a pole vault, and Joe was at Michigan State doing pole vault. I mean, there's all these under sports, but the thing is back to football, Brady, is Marine City is probably in the last 15 years is probably third or fourth most wins in the state and has more appearances. There's got to be some sort of thing where a coach goes, well, this program's really good. We might want to go check and see what kind of players they got.
And Brady, to his point, and it's not just about wins either. It's like how well coached these players,
right?
These high school,
and at that point, coaches like.
And we know these kids at Marine City are coached well. What's the missing link?
And the part of that is sometimes you just have to kind of tip your cap and go, yeah, that's how good the system and good the coaching is, that you're getting all of this out of players that might not be next level caliber. And I don't know. I think sometimes this area gets under recruited, and maybe not. I mean, heck, it was pulling teeth to get DeMarco Singleton. You remember him from Marysville, 2 years ago, to get him a D2 offer, and he's as a redshirt freshman, he's playing at Wayne State. So I don't know. If I had the answer, I'd tell you, because it's not just a Marine City, it's not just a Cros-Lex, right. It's not just a Marysville, it's St Clair County. And I don't know why. I mean, heck, go back to when Marysville was good. How many superstar D1 players did Walt Braun have? Not a lot.
Well, he could have been, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Roger Shaft. He played at Central. You had Miller and Palmatier that played at Eastern. I mean, Marine City had Rob Palmatier that played at Eastern. But the thing is it's far and in between.
It's
and funny. You mentioned too is a lot of kids from this area. You know what sport they're getting recruited in? Hockey.
Yeah, well, that's because hockey's a completely different animal. And we talked about it, I wish it was like Minnesota where you played it in the high school, but you have to go away. But yeah, you want to talk about an area that's their best sport. This area's best sport's hockey. They just don't play high school.
Right.
And they don't even play. They don't even have league. Like you mentioned Minnesota, but there's a lot of small schools in Minnesota that don't have a hockey team, but they have what they call league. So they have 3 high schools that will combine to make one hockey team there.
Yeah, and it just, that hockey's probably the sport's just churning out hockey talent left and right.
Yeah,
and it's like such a great sport, and I think like the not just St. Clair County, but the Thumb area could do that type of league system. You put 3, put Northern, put Central or Port Huron, you put Marysville, all those kids that play up at Glacier Point or wherever, they could, there could be a league team there.
Well, the problem is a lot of the kids aren't playing at Glacier Point. They're playing down in Detroit. They're playing
Compaware.
Yeah, they're playing
But
Little
no matter where they're
Little
playing,
Tire.
wherever they're getting their instructional league, it doesn't matter. I'm saying you put those kids wherever they're playing in instructional league, you put those 3 high schools together to make a league team, and then you go have those kids play outside the area.
Could be.
Well, that's what they do. That's what they do everywhere else. That's what they do here in Florida. Same thing.
Because I'll tell you now, if you combine those 3 schools for hockey, oof.
Yeah, if you got all the kids that play hockey, it'd be unbelievable.
Right.
I think the recruiting in any sport is just like any other industry. It's a lot of it's who you know. It's not, it's about relationships, and you have some kind of in with a coach at one of these schools, and that's just the way it goes. That's with everything, if you think about any industry.
How many companies out there do these features? Like, I had a guy who works with me. He's no longer in our company, but his job before is he worked for a company that sold recruiting tools to parents. So they say, hey, you think your kid's going to be a running back? You want him at D1? You spend this much money with us. And
I'll tell you point blank that don't spend your money on recruiting services.
But there's a lot of those companies out there.
I know, because they sell hope and people buy hope.
Yeah.
Do not buy recruiting services. I know for a fact, I have heard from multiple coaches in different sports, they get an email from a recruiting service, delete. They have coaches, that might get you noticed at a small school that doesn't have the resources to watch over film, but the coaches will get the kids that they see, that their GAs tell them that they don't need the recruiting service. No, that they don't know people, and the ones that if they claim they got someone at a high level, guess what? Michigan State, Ohio, they don't hear about kids from recruiting services.
Well, they're playing on if you can write us a check, we don't care how good your kid is. We're going to just take your money and try to promote them anyway. That's
it is not worth it. And if you're good enough, you will get noticed by someone. You might not get to the level you might be able to, but someone will give you a chance to play at the next level.
What does Marine City have to do to get back on track? We know that they've bounced back, but the one loss, even though it was close, it was a surprise to us Mariner fans.
Well, let me just tell you, Marine City plays Armada 10 times. They're going to beat them 8. I'm going to tell you, when they're healthy. Heslop was not healthy, and that doesn't help. And I'll tell you, I know Armada is good, but I'll tell you, I know Marine City's got a horrible record against the BWAC. But I will tell you right now, Darren Letson came to me, and I talked to him the day after the game, and he says, well, by the end of this year, we'll right the ship. And he goes, and by the end of the year, we'll play them and we'll take care of business.
Did you see Brady's face when I said back on track? He's like, what do you mean back?
Well, yeah.
You know what? You understand where the Alabama of the thumb.
6-1.
One loss is unacceptable, Brady, in Marine City.
And it's high school football. You don't control. And everything comes to an end at some point, whenever that is. But 8-1 is not bad by any means. Even if they go 7-2 and lose to an undefeated Durand, the sky's not falling. And you're right. Depending on the draw, you might get another shot at Armada. You might not. It really depends how the state's feeling and who makes it and where they want to slot all the teams in at.
Yeah.
Fred, you think? What do you think Darren would think of relish the opportunity of getting another chance of Armada?
As I would say, the bell goes off and he drools like Pavlov's dog.
So Brady, did you go to that Marine City Armada game? Were you at that game?
I did do that game.
Yeah.
So
was that
right next to me?
Was that the most exciting game that you've seen in person this year?
This year, definitely. A double overtime game where in the last 20 minutes of real time in the game, you thought each team was going to win it 3 different times. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. I really like to see the rematch because I think everyone wants to, because I think Armado's is tired of people like Fred saying, hey, no, we win that game. They're like, fine, we'll play again. And they're playing good football right now. Marine City's playing good football right now. And that would be a really fun playoff game. I'd rather have it as like a district or regional championship than a first round game, but I'll take it any way I can get it.
Hey, Brandon, this week, are you going to Cros-Lex West Branch?
Who?
Brady.
Brady.
Yeah, I'll be up at Cros-Lex North Branch.
You will?
Yes, that I will be at that game.
What are your predictions on that?
That's a tough one. Depending on who plays for Cros-Lex, because Belly Grappi hasn't played since the Armada game. He makes a huge difference. If Joey Ramsey plays or doesn't play, that makes a huge difference. So with having incomplete information, I can't give you a firm yes or no, but if you're putting a gun to my head, I'm saying Cros-Lex by a close score, but I've been wrong a lot this year, so I don't know.
Were you shocked? Were you shocked with the Cros-Lex Yale score?
Yeah, well, yes and no, because you have to imagine the anatomy that goes into that. Okay, Yale's head coach is Garrett Grundman, who was Mr. Everything at Cros-Lex. So you have that factor right there.
I thought he was at Emily City.
No, he was a Cros-Lex guy, and he was basically what Jake Townsend was before Jake Townsend. So he was incredible.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right.
It's at Yale Park. It's a rivalry game for a trophy. So you have that added on. And the other thing is, Cros-Lex wasn't at full health. Now, was I very surprised? Yes. But when you dig deep into it, did it have a lot of makings for something like that? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The bigger surprise was the week after when Almont went to Cros-Lex, beat Cros-Lex at homecoming, shut them out in the second half, and made every big play when they needed to. And that was more surprising to me, how Almont beat Cros-Lex than Cros-Lex almost losing to Yale.
Crazy.
And I'll tell you what, Yale's a team to keep an eye on, because in an era where numbers are down, where it's hard to have a JV and a freshman team, Yale has 40-some kids on varsity. They have 2 different JV teams. Numbers is so much of the battle, and Garrett Grundman has that rolling out at Yale. It might not be this year, but they might be what Armada was in 2020. The seeds are being planted for maybe not next year, but year or 2 down the road. Yale's thinking BWAC title and not, we got one upset win, yay for us.
Do you think Garrett is happy that he's got Gary Griffin as his offensive coordinator, though?
Yeah, I think
that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah. When he was able to get Griff out there. I know he likes what he did in the year Garrett was down at St. Clair helping out, that they had a good relationship. And yeah, I know that's probably helped him out a lot.
Fantastic.
Talk about stuck on sports, what you got going, and people can find
we're gearing
you.
up for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then depending on the draw, it's how we're going to go. And before you know it, we'll be into basketball season and hockey season. And when it's 5 days a week of stuff, when we really get on the roll for that. And with the 2 extra games for basketball this year, we have a lot more fun non-conference matchups. So, I mean, football the rest of the way, football is going to dominate until Thanksgiving. And then that's when we really get busy with games.
And you just do high school games?
Yeah, just doing the high school stuff. So at least for Get Stuck on Sports, I'm doing a few other things outside of that. But for Get Stuck on Sports, yeah, we have so much high school stuff to do. We couldn't add anything to the plate if we wanted to.
That's a beautiful thing. So as you can see, I'm dressed all in red. Kind of a little segue moving from high school to it's not deer season. It's hockey season.
Yeah.
I know Mike doesn't give a shit about it.
No, I don't even give 2 shits about it.
All right. So what is your aspect, Brady? I know that you watch hockey. Your dad's a big hockey guy. I know you follow the Prowlers, and now they got the Motor City Rockers down in Fraser, and they're opening up on Friday. Thursday, tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's
tomorrow.
Right. Tomorrow. With the inaugural game down there. What is your expectations of what the Red Wings are going to do this year?
I want them to be playing meaningful games in March. And you don't have to make the playoffs because it's tough, but you gotta be playing. I don't want it to be the new year and me go, all right, well, the Wings suck. Maybe they can get lucky with some ping pong balls and get a high pick again. Play interesting competitive hockey. You have Lucas Raymond, you have Mo Seider, you have guys to build off of. I want to see, hey, how are Yzerman's picks doing? Because now you're really starting to see he hit a home run with the first couple. How do they continue? How do the young guys develop? And I don't expect them to make or win a playoff series, but hey, be 3 points out with 5
scare
games.
somebody.
Yeah,
scare
be
somebody
on that bubble because their division's tough. It's hockey's maybe one of the hardest sports besides baseball to get that turnaround. But I want to see progress.
What do you think about?
Started off all right last year, and then you hit a tailspin, and everyone went.
Well,
okay,
yeah. So
talk to me
about the guy behind you, Fred, that jersey right there, 15, wasn't healthy.
Verana.
You're right. So him healthy through the season this year, what could he bring to the table?
I mean, he's going to score some more goals, and it helps slot guys down in lines where they expect to play, where maybe they're more suited, where instead of having a guy on the second line or first line that isn't ready for that, they go down and they're in a different role. It's kind of a domino effect where, hey, you get one guy in the right spot, you get another one. And yeah, I mean, health's always another thing that changes it. And then the goaltending needs to be figured out by the end of the year.
Oh, well, that's it.
Whether you know what it is or not. Hey, if you know everyone sucks, then maybe you go out and you spend some money on a goaltender. If someone steps up and becomes the guy, hey, great, you have the guy, but just figure out the answer.
I think they do have the. I think they do have the guy, and I think it's Sebastian Casa.
You think so?
I think so.
Well, we'll know in about 82 games.
That's right. Well, he's in Grand Rapids right now, but I think Neglovic is a serviceable. Your goalie is as good as your defense, and I think with Soderblom and Seider and you got two big guys. You got 6'4", 6'8" defensemen that are good with a puck. You got Raymond who can score. You got Bertuzzi now that
you can play in all.
He can play in Canada, vaccinated or not, which was stupid anyway. But we're not getting into that. But he's able to play. Yeah. And now you can move people like Rasmussen down into the low.
And you can get anything out of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, there's always I think they've got a lot of depth, and I think they're a little bit younger and they got some speed, but the key, always been the problem for the Red Wings is the people that are out in front of the goalie, and they haven't had a sniper that can put the puck in the net. And I think with Verana and Bertuzzi being healthy, and not to mention, a couple of the other guys that maybe Zadina finally decides that he's one of the biggest disappointments in my book.
Well, and that's the other thing is maybe last year and even to this year is the first year you're really getting all the Ken Holland ick off you.
Oh,
and
God.
It's becoming Yzerman's team. Like, let's be honest. Like, when Yzerman took the job, it was 2 years of teardown.
Yeah.
And now you're finally starting to see a little bit of the Yzer plan in full effect.
Well, Verana was a great acquisition for me. You got that half season they got out of him when they traded for him. He was the best player on the team for sure, with almost as much goals as anybody else. And what they gave up for him was unbelievable. I mean, that I had little belief in Yzerman because everybody says he went down to Tampa and built it. No, it was there. He just didn't screw it up. But when he came back and he started to do little things, and then his last 2 drafts, I think he is the right guy.
I mean, early results are good, but you know how hard it is to build up. And even when you build it up, it's so hard because hockey has the most parity of any sport.
And one thing I didn't think he addressed right away, which was concerning, was the goalie. But like Fred said, they didn't have defense in front of them. Why bring in a great goalie if you don't have defense in front of them? It just piss them off. So
right, and again, he knew it's 2 years of teardown. Okay, maybe we can spend an asset to get a slightly better goalie, and instead of winning 32 games, we win 34.
Yeah,
what does that really do for
Well, I'm just glad that there's not a guy on the team named Erickson and Grice and Grice.
Oh, Grice. I hated Grice. I mean, I've never seen a guy,
dude, he was
so many pucks go right between his legs.
Yep. Dude, he tried to jump in front of the bus to kill himself, and it went right between his legs. I mean, that's just horrible. So
yeah, but
now notice behind me here, Brady, I have a Lions jersey, and the only reason why I kept it, because you see that number right there. That's what their record's going to be here shortly.
1-8.
What a fucking dumpster fire. Hey, so much for my prediction of winning 8 games.
And Rob's of 7 games.
Well, and yours of 5.
Yeah, they still got a chance to get 5.
I hope they right the ship after the bye week. Again, maybe we pumped them up a little too much, because if we're being honest, Quinn and Patricia left the Lions at maybe as bad of a state as Matt Millen did.
Patricia was a defensive genius. You didn't
like
know
just ask him.
Smartest guy in the room.
Yep, Matt Patricia. The only thing he's got going for him that he might be able to get a role as Mr. French in the Family Affair remake.
You know what's disheartening about him though is
everything.
Well, we all had some expectations. Mike was a little lower than Fred and I. And we thought, hey, we think they've changed. They drafted a little bit better.
And I thought they did.
An attitude, but the problem is they're the same old Lions that find every goddamn way to lose a football game. Every way to lose a football game, they still do. They can't get that stink off of their back.
Well, everybody got pumped up because of the hard knocks.
I totally agree.
Thing and
talk about the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
This shit's so good.
Why can't you know what? And the thing is,
you look at their coaching staff. Yeah, you look at their coaching staff on paper. That's probably, you're looking at, okay, you got people that played in the league. They know what it takes to win. They didn't play on horse shit teams. Aaron Glenn didn't. Deuce Staley didn't. Dan Campbell was a traveling man, but he always got to, he played and he did his job. The thing is you're bringing all this talent, and you got Chris Spielman and you got and Holmes bringing these kids in. Now, mind you, everybody's focusing on the defense. Well, they drafted mostly defense in this draft, and you're gonna. But the thing is what I guess what we haven't really thought of, and what everybody else hasn't thought of, is they're building depth. And maybe we shouldn't be really focusing on this year. It should be for the following year. But I think, like Mike said, Hard Knocks kind of made it where it was like, holy shit, maybe this is a team that really could do some damage, and they still can. I'm not saying they can't, but because Green Bay's not as good as what they think they are. Dallas is proving to be better than
your boys. You must be happy about that.
Oh, well.
Your team.
Super Rush.
Yeah, and he won't even be playing when the Lions go there.
Yeah. What I always said though is about the Lions is they've never developed talent. That was their thing. I mean, you'd say, well, they had Barry Sanders. They didn't develop it. He had it. He had it. Even with Kelvin too, same thing, right? So you get 2 generational players you don't have to develop. They've had problems developing talent. I'm looking at the team right now. Have they developed Swift to a better running back? I don't know. Have they developed Hawkinson to a better tight end? No. I don't know. That's my question is, can they develop talent? That's always been their issue and their problem. It doesn't seem like they've actually addressed that, if I'm honest.
If you look at what they've done, I mean, they are moving, as weird as it sounds, in the right direction, because last year's team was just void of talent. And now at least this year, the losses are frustrating because they're better. Like the offense, really, their only bad loss was the Patriots loss. Like you feel like heck, the defense didn't even need to get
The
stopped.
Minnesota loss was bad.
Well,
Hey, that was a game that
bad
should,
as in non-competitive.
hey, they should be 3-2 right now. They should,
Yes.
their only losses should have been obviously Philly and New England, and that New England shutting them out. They're not that good. If they're not 29-0 better than the Lions.
No, but
they were that day.
The alarm bells and the time for me to go, okay, maybe we need to think about a change is a year from now, because
the clock started after this week. Honeymoon's
okay.
over.
Years way too late. Way too late. I mean, we've been hearing Lions organization say,
let's think about this.
10 years, 3 years.
Matt Rule just got fired from Carolina with a 4-11 record.
Yeah.
And if they continue down this road, we're talking a 7 and 20-something record but they're going to keep them around. You hired a guy that had no resume.
None.
I mean, you got Sean Payton that's sitting out there. I would throw every flipping penny at him to come and coach here.
It's the NFL. You don't have 4 years to give someone because then you have another 4 years that you're a decade.
Exactly.
Decades.
The NFL doesn't stand for National Football League. It says not for long. That's what it should be. It's a business, and they have to right the ship on that shit.
Well,
years way too long. It's got to get addressed now.
If their guys are doing well, if the guys that this regime brought in is playing, then it's all about the anatomy of how it ends the rest.
But we hire a coach not just to identify his talent, is to come in and take the talent that's already there that you can't get rid of and develop them into something.
Well, you
could have brought in anyone and they wouldn't have developed.
You know who said that 4 or 5 years ago? Cleveland said that. And now they're struggling. Well, they're not now, but I mean, they changed the narrative. Tennessee used to say that. Jacksonville said it last year. So it doesn't take you 3 to 4 years. In the NFL, you can have a turnaround in a year because you're talking about professionals, and there's not much difference between one to another in a professional level. It's about their development and attitude. Every team is very close in talent. Very close in talent.
Yeah, you figure most games are within 3 to 7 points.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay.
Again,
it's very rare that you see it's very rare that you see somebody get beat by a big number. Like
29-0.
Like 29-0 or
41-10 or what it just happened.
Yeah, 42-17.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see that. You don't see that very often. No. But again, I mean, I know that the development stages, I think the biggest thing is I think they have more talent than they've had in let's say the last 2 or 3 years.
Since the first year of Quinn Trisha.
Yep. So another year, another draft of bringing people in. Now, mind you, Kevin Mon and I said, why didn't they draft Bailey Zappi? It would have been a nice backup quarterback to have. This regime, this past regime, and it's just like an ongoing thing. When's the last viable backup quarterback that the Detroit Lions had? And it's John Kitna.
So they had Sean Hill after that.
No, come on, Sean Hill. God. I'd rather have John Kitna than Sean Hill.
He was bad. Sean Hill was a good backup. Come on.
I'd rather have Eric Hipple.
Who'd they have? They had 1 year of
well, they had Matt Castle.
Yeah, Matt Castle.
Yeah, well.
But anyway, there's not a lot of NFL teams that have strong backups, though.
You have. Oh, I agree.
Okay.
But
okay, go right down
the chandelier before you have your walls up.
Right. Good point.
So,
but the walls have been up. They just
but you know what? It
takes one person to get hurt, and
Bridgewater, Cooper Rush. I mean, there's teams now that have better.
Jacoby Brissett.
Better than they were 2 or 3 years ago. There's more.
Well, you want to talk about a player that's better than they were 2 or 3 years ago? How about Jared Goff? Everyone thought he was going to be there and keep the seat warm for the next guy. And I know he played bad in New England, but okay, he's played well in 4 out of the 5 games. And since Dan Campbell's taken over the play calling, was like week 10 of last year, he's actually been pretty darn good.
Are they,
Well,
how
he's
many,
been-
and
he's
I
been
haven't watched them
serviceable.
this year, how many play action fake,
Oh,
Can't,
no,
can't
there's a
do it when
lot of
fucking
it, but
Swift's
you don't-
over on the sideline with a hangnail. I mean, he doesn't know the difference about playing hurt and being injured.
All
And
I know is,
that's
hey,
what Deuce
Jared
Staley
Goff's
has been
pretty
saying.
good.
Hey,
He's
Deuce
gotta
Staley's
cut
been
me.
trying to drill this into
Let's
this guy's
address
head.
his
You have to
point.
play hurt. If you're not injured, you have to play hurt, and he won't do it.
Let's address Brady's point. Is he wrong? I don't think he's wrong. He's played pretty well. I hate to admit it because I hate the guy.
well,
but-
Best ball he
okay,
played
no, look, wait,
since
but
the
here's,
Super Bowl year in LA.
wait. Let's define well. So quarterbacks are,
A quarterback
Fine.
you can make the playoff with and win with.
listen, no, define well is what's the Lions record right now?
1-4. Are
Okay,
you gonna
there
blame
you
the
go.
Seattle loss on
There
him?
you go.
Nope.
So
Are
are
you
we
gonna-
gonna
I
do
mean,
what
I'm
we
not going to
did-
blame the Minnesota
Wait,
loss
wait,
either.
Are we
listen.
gonna do what we did with Stafford and blame every loss on the quarterback?
Well, that's
No.
what-
No,
that's
but
what everybody in the
we
state
gotta put
does.
it in perspective is like, hey,
So
listen.
this year,
Until
guys
this
that can
week,
take
they
over
were the
games.
number one offense in the
Stafford-
NFL.
Stafford
In
took
5
over
games.
games they shouldn't have won and they won.
in 5 games, 1,355 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks.
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about yards in quarterback play now that's no longer relevant. You watch all these quarterbacks that rack up these huge yards, but they're throwing to the out. Yards are no longer relevant as a stat in quarterbacks. It's really touchdowns versus picks and wins. Really, that's
So
what it
11 to
boils down
4. And if you can't blame the Seattle loss on him,
I
they
mean,
put up
Cam
40.
Newton racked up more yards than any quarterback in history for 3 years, but I mean,
And he was
it
really
doesn't mean-
good. Then he broke.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I mean,
the quarterback doesn't
They got
make
to
the whole
they got to the
team.
Super Bowl because they had the best defense and they had Greg Olson. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, he was throwing to the receiver on the flats all the time. It wasn't. Those are junk yards.
So are you
Those
saying that
junk
Matt
yards.
Stafford is no good because he throws in the flat to Cooper Kupp?
Well, I think Stafford is a quarterback that. Yeah, because the only receivers that he had in his past in Detroit, he didn't throw to the flats when he had
Calvin.
yeah.
Jared Goff's been throwing downfield.
Okay.
And you just talked about a lack of talent. I mean, are we going to annoy? I'm on
Well,
Ross.
no,
St.
you're right.
Johnson
They
today.
don't have receivers. They don't.
So then who's been making the offense hum the way it has? With
Well,
half-
I don't
with
know.
DeAndre
I don't
Swift
know if
being
at 1 and
less than
4.
40%
I
of the
think we have to
snaps.
put it in perspective. I don't know at 1 and 4 we're talking hum. Has he
Well,
done
you
a
put
nice
up that
job?
many points, and the defense has been the problem, not the offense.
Well, defense is
Yeah.
been-
I mean, you
And-
can't put
and-
up 45 points and lose a fucking game.
Two of
The
your
low-
losses, you
Not
put
to
up
mention the
35
fact
and
that
45
their
points.
receiving core is not bad. They
No.
got
well, not
Amon
bad
Ross
is
St.
different
Brown.
than
They got
good.
Craig. They got Josh Reynolds. They got
Shark.
they got Chark, who's injured right now. They got Hawkinson. They got Swift out of the backfield who can catch the ball. Jamal Williams can catch the ball out of the backfield. They have one of the best offensive lines in the game.
All I'm
Right
saying
now.
is
The
Jared
pro-
Goff was supposed to be the guy that sat here and waited for the next guy to get drafted. And he's had, in the last 12 games, he's played 1 bad game.
He's got a good point. I hate to admit it because I can't stand Jared
See,
Goff,
well,
but the man's right.
I still disagree because I feel like he's more of like a Kirk Cousins than a actual like Matt Stafford.
You've watched the
that's-
games this year?
No, but I see. the
Okay,
stats.
then what?
I see the
Then you're
stats.
just looking off numbers.
Well, I'm looking. Well, you look at the stats, and then you look
Stats
at the
lie.
loss, and you say to yourself, has he done a nice job? But is he the answer? No.
But look at all the losses that they've had. Scoring as many points as they had, they shouldn't have that many losses. The problem is, in one word, the defense, and
Well,
nobody can fucking
that's two
argue
words,
that
that's
right
okay.
now.
Their
No,
defense is
I
defense
horrible.
bet
is
you there
one
are more
word.
teams
Their
than not
defense
that
is
would
horrible.
trade
He
their
said the
quarterback.
defense.
That more
it is
teams than
horrible.
not that
The
would trade their
defense is
quarterback for
horrible.
Jared Goff right now. And I'm not going to go through all 32, but once
Nope.
you get past the elite 5 to 10,
Yeah, there's
I
a
bet you
huge
there's
drop
at least
off.
10 to 15 teams that would take Jared Goff in a heartbeat over what they have right now.
Sure. There's no question about that.
So
I know New Orleans would.
yeah,
I know.
No, I disagree with you. They still think Jameis Winston is the answer. And if they were put to the test, they would not take Goff over Winston. I'm almost sure of it. They still talk about
So
him as
that's
the
just
answer.
stupidity.
No,
That's just flat
it
out
may be.
stubbornness and stupidity.
Maybe.
I know Carolina would take him right now over Sam Darnold and Baker
Just
Mayfield.
saying that he's making it really hard on the Lions to say, okay, we're just going to go get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and whoever.
Well, but
Hayden
we know
Hooker,
both of those would be big mistakes if they did that. Right?
Oh yeah,
Well,
we're talking.
Running quarterbacks, and you can say what you want about both of them, but they still rely on the run, both of them, way too much. It just doesn't work.
Well, anyway, but you guys got anything else for me? I got to run, got to get to a few other events. So it's been fun. Always
Absolutely.
appreciate coming on.
Hey, thanks for all the
Thanks
info.
for coming on.
No problem. Hope you listen to the games this week. I'll be at North Branch. Cros-Lex should be a big one, and then I'm wherever for the playoffs. Hopefully we get that Armada Marine.
I think we're going to be in Tim McConnell's barn watching the Marine City game in center line, and then listening to you on the broadcast as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yep.
By
and
the way,
guys,
Marine City's going to beat center line by 30.
Wow,
yeah.
nice.
Did you hear about Lincoln and Marysville?
Yeah, no fans. That's
No
great,
fans
right?
because they had an all-out brawl at the
Really?
at the field. Yep. They had a forfeit. Both teams forfeited last week's game because of it.
Well, you might not have. Hopefully, you might not have to deal with the MAC too much longer.
Well, you got some info?
Oh, listen to the last episode of the Get Stuck on Sports podcast, and you'll hear all about it.
Great.
Oh, he's
Good plug. I like that.
That's
a
Good
good
job,
plug.
Brady.
Yeah.
job.
Text me the link, brother.
I will, but
You can just go on Stuck on Sports.
Yeah, Get Stuck on Sports.com. Last podcast up there. Fans of the old Scal might be really happy.
Nice.
It'll be interesting to listen to that.
So
So
I'll let you know about that. But
hey,
I guess I'll leave you with that little teaser.
all right. Well, you have fun doing the volleyball game.
Will do.
And guys, we're sticking on because Rob's got a
I got to
subject for
get
us.
going. So
Oh.
we'll do it for next
Okay.
show.
Okay.
All right. Well, yep. No more red book.
No more. No, this is coming from. It's actually coming from the Harvard Business Review, but it's good. It'll be a teaser. It's for the ladies next week.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.